Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Design Review Board. Today is March 13th, 2025. It is now 5 p.m. Maria, will you please call the roll?
Board Member Kovney?
Here.
Board Member Gibbs?
Here.
Board Member Weil?
Here.
Chair Pro Tem Thalman?
Here.
Chair Gannon?
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I keep wanting to call it the national anthem. Yes, I've reached that age where now I have to wear glasses. Okay, so for tonight's meeting, the public communications will be first. At that time, any members of the public who wish to speak on items not on tonight's agenda, but in the purview of the Design Review Board can speak. At that time, you will be given 2 minutes per speaker. Then we will have the consent calendar, followed by the a modification of the agenda. Then we are going into regular order of business. I'll introduce the item. The board will give ex parte. Staff will present summary presentation, provide comments. The board will then have the opportunity to question staff. The public hearing will then be declared open. At that time, the applicant team has 5 minutes to have their presentation. Members of the public will then be given 3 minutes to comment. Applicant will then have 3 minutes for their rebuttal. Board will then have the opportunity to question the applicant. The public hearing will then be closed. Board will enter into discussion and deliberation. We'll take an action or make an action followed by a motion, second that motion, and then there will be a discussion on the motion. If any member residing within 300 feet of the project who disagrees with the board's action, they have 14 days to appeal. Okay. So at this time, any members of the public wish to speak on items not on tonight's agenda, but in the purview of the Design Review Board? Steve Cordtani.
Morning, board. Good morning. Good evening, board. Just really briefly, I want to thank the board for standing fast yesterday. And I want to recognize Chris for her service. I won't be here next hearing, so I just wanted to take the opportunity. And I wanted to wish Chris and Jessica a happy birthday this Sunday. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Steve. Approved.
Coincidence?
And same year too. No.
That's why I need glasses. Okay, next is the modification of the agenda. Mr. Campbell?
Yes, Madam Chair, we do have one item that we're going to be removing from the agenda. It is item 4.3 for 167 Chiquita. That application was withdrawn today, so there is no action for the board on that item this evening. So it is, yes, it's off the agenda.
Okay, wonderful. Then we will go into the consent calendar. The consent calendar consists of 4.1, that's minutes for approval, 4.2, located at 31731 Sea Cove Drive. That's being continued to March 27th. Can we have a public, anyone? We have
Here,
to-
I'll
we have
offer a
to
motion.
open- We
Madam
have to
Chair?
open it to the public.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. At this time, any members of the public wish to speak on 31731 Sea Cove Drive? It's for continuance to March 27th. Okay, you can make that motion.
Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
If I might, for the record, note, we had one edit to the minutes to make. I believe we have speaker number 9 that's indicated as speaker number 9, but we know who that person is. It was Ann Earhart. So we'll go ahead and make that change.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, I'll offer a motion to approve item the consent calendar 4.1 and 4.2 with the changes to the minutes as stated.
I'll second that.
Board Member Kovney?
Yes.
Board Member Gibbs?
Yes.
Board Member Weil?
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Thalman?
Yes.
Chair Gannon?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Next up is 5.1, located at 1055 Summit Drive. Warren? No Sadie?
She's out for a walk. She'd rather be.
I understand. Is this a candidate, Mr. Campbell, for expedited?
We can make any expedited presentation you like this evening, so we'll just go ahead and introduce the item.
Guys okay with that? Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Good evening, Chair and members of the board. Item 5.1 is request for design review at 1055 Summit Drive. The proposed project includes an exterior modifications, which consists of removing the horizontal wood siding and going to an all gray stucco finish, re-roofing with composition shingle, and replacing the garage door with a stainless steel garage door. Initially, the application included an AC unit to be installed on the deck, third level deck. But staff received correspondence regarding noise concerns. So since then, the applicant has revised the plan to have the AC unit ground mounted. Overall, staff recommends that the board adopt the attached resolution, but deliberate on design articulation, neighborhood compatibility, and lighting and glare, and then find said action exempt from CEQA.
Thank you, Sarah. Do we have questions for staff? All right, Warren, you've got 5 minutes.
Sarah, thank you for all your work on this project. I appreciate it. Also, Louis, it's a very snappy, very dark blue coat you have on tonight. And I would like to say, Chris, thank you for all your efforts on the board. If it wasn't for the board, I would have never met you. So the board does have value after all.
Boy, are you lucky, Board Member Thelman. You've gotten to meet Warren. The dog is the most friendly part. Wait.
Would like to say one thing though on the project. If we can just redline the AC off the plans entirely, it doesn't need design review. I did want to say that the railing is glass now. That will be fully permitted. I think staff had some concern with the garage door and glare. It's going to be a brushed stainless steel. I don't see any glare problem. It's not facing straight into the road. So thank you very much. That's all I have.
Okay. At this time, any members of the public wish to speak on 1055 Summit? 1055 Summit Drive? No? Okay. Would you like to hear yourself
Nothing
speak?
further. Thank you.
Okay. Do you guys have questions for the applicant? All right, no questions?
Did we do ex parte?
Oh, no, we should give ex parte. Thank you for catching. that.
I met with Warren at the site.
I spoke with Warren.
Spoke with Warren and did a drive-by.
Same here.
I did a drive-by. Okay. Comments? Yeah, lead the way. The book.
This will be quick. I think it meets all guidelines. It's a big improvement in the property. I don't see any problem with a brushed metal garage door. Accordingly, and I appreciate you moving the air conditioner. I support the project.
I concur with my colleague.
Yeah, and I'll add that it does meet the design articulation as the location is kind of in between a zone of Arch Beach Heights as it shifts down the hill. It's a little more compatible with the houses that lead off the hill coming down Summit Drive. And so it's a hard entrance, garages are at the street. It's compatible. The design articulation works for this site and the other components meet the guidelines for me. So thank you.
Are you sure you don't want to keep the AC unit part of this application?
I am sure, yes. Thank you.
No, he's removing it. Yeah, okay. Chris, you have comments? Oh, no comments. Okay, well, I have no comments and concur, yeah, ditto. Do we have a motion to approval?
Chair, since staff had a couple concerns, did we address those three components?
Yes.
All right, great. Then Chair, I'll make a motion on item number 5.1 at project location 1055 Summit Drive, that the board approves and adopts resolution 24-1414, approving design review 24-1414 for architectural modifications to an existing single-family residence and no air conditioner. And the finding is exempt from CEQA pursuant section 15301 for the CEQA guidelines.
Chair, I'll second.
All right, we
Board
have a
Member
motion
Chudley?
and a second. Go ahead.
Yes.
Board Member Gibbs?
Yes.
Board Member Weil?
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Thalman?
Yes.
Chair Gannon?
Yes,
Motion carried.
thank you.
Thank you all. And happy birthday, Jessica. Happy birthday, Chris.
Thank you. Give Sadie my love.
Will do. Thank you.
Next up is project located at 32002 Sunset Avenue. Do we have ex parte while I'm thinking of it?
Chair, I went by the site again.
And I spoke with Steve Coratani.
I spoke with Steve Coratani.
I did nothing on this one.
I drove by this.
Just for the record, I had done all the due diligence, the project last time, and the project has not changed.
And I spoke with Steve Coratani.
Okay,
And Chair, I'll recommend an expedited hearing.
I can agree with that. Okay,
All right, so item 5.2 is for the project at 3200 Sunset Avenue. This was last heard by the board about a month ago. The board generally accepted the design, but was concerned about the ability to make the variance findings for the parking space. Staff has prepared the findings for the variance and recommends approval. Staff received correspondence in support, as well as a concern from the neighbor to the north regarding the mechanical room door. That concludes the presentation.
thank you. Do we have questions for staff? No, I thought for sure. Okay, Mr. Coratani, you have 5 minutes.
Yeah, here's the problem. I'm not supposed to be presenting. I keep looking for Vince, but we'll go ahead and move forward. So good evening, Madam Chair, board members, and staff. My name is Steve Coratani. And when we were last here, basically we were challenged by board member Gibbs to be able to make the findings 1 and 2. And that meant that we would need to find variances that have been granted to other properties. So I spent a fair amount of time walking the streets and also looking through the files in both building and planning, and I managed to find 1. In 1/10 of that time, Daniel found 4 more. So nice being younger and having a more agile mind, I suppose. So we've now found 5 or more projects that have been granted variances for either not providing any parking or providing only 1. Now, Daniel did make a finding, and it's sort of hyper-technical, but those projects were all under 1,500 square feet, for complete transparency, but we're barely over that, and I think that we've met the intent of the code. And, I want to thank staff again. This was found really at the 11th hour that we would have to provide parking because we were over 1,500 square feet. And, staff has done a great job in helping the applicant McVickers being able to accomplish their dreams of having both an ADU and to do a slight remodel to the house. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. At this time, any members of the public wish to speak on 32002 Sunset Avenue? No? Okay. Would you like to continue your?
Not really. The last thing I wanted to add, I think that with Daniel's variance findings, and I know there was some concern in the past, there really isn't a special privilege granted by the variance. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Board members, do you have questions for the applicant? All right. You want to, you look like you're ready to go.
Yeah, I don't know whether this comes within the ex parte. I did drive by, not every one of those, but a few of those to see of the other addresses to see whether this falls within those 2 findings of substantial rights that, and particularly finding 1 dealing with special circumstances applicable to property that would deprive the property of privileges enjoyed by other properties. And the one thing that struck me, and I kind of wish I had done it the first time, and to the extent I ever apologize, I'll apologize for that. There is such a mishmash of parking all throughout that whole area. It's not really apparent right on, a summit, but I find that the applicable, area for determining special privileges is the broader area of South Laguna there, where these houses fit within kind of crazy parking that is being requested here. While this is a closer case because it's 1,900 square feet rather than 1,500, and I appreciate the honesty I appreciated the candor and the accuracy from staff and from you, Mr. Karatani. I don't think it's so big a difference that you can't make the findings. I do know that this is a close case, and I don't think it should set a precedent for single parking places in that area. But for this one, based on these facts, I find that the findings are appropriate and can support those findings and the approval of the variance. With respect to the overall project, I think I gave my comments last time. They apply to the same since it hasn't changed, and that's namely, I think it's a well-designed project. It totally fits within the neighborhood compatible, not a mass and scale problem at all. As far and no apparent privacy or view equity issues. So for those reasons, I think all the guidelines are met, and hope that I expect that the board will approve, and you'll have a wonderful project there.
And go ahead. We'll do the bookends.
Were we doing questions? Because I had one for staff.
We already went past questions.
Oh, I was trying to get one in, but it was just around the air conditioner.
Oh, the air conditioner.
Daniel, we got some questions about the air conditioner. Is it set in a spot that it's not required for DRB?
Let me check on that. I think from what I recall, it's towards the front of the property,
But it's not
but
within the
it's
setback.
outside the front yard setback, from what I recall.
It has
and-
retaining walls on all three sides.
Right, I think it has an enclosure, right, Vince?
All insulated.
Yeah,
There
So-
was a question that came up from the email. I just wanted to confirm that that was accurate in my readings of the,
Mhm.
but I can do my comments.
Okay, yes.
So I was supportive of it last time. I'm appreciative that you guys were able to accommodate parking with this project, even though the modifications were minor and an ADU component within the project. I think it allows, the variance is necessary to allow you the right of enjoyment, but also make reasonable improvements to the access of the property. So for those reasons, I'm supportive of the project. I think the outline that the variance components that staff provided is sufficient for me. So I'm supportive of it this evening.
And I was supportive of it the second time and stand by my comments the last time, so I can support it and and thank you, Daniel Latham, for working on making those findings.
And I would agree that I think the findings, I can support the findings. I think this was based on a technicality, basically. 1,466 square feet and the addition of the ADU, which it doesn't seem to be significant. So I can approve the project tonight. I agree with the findings of the variance and support the project.
I concur with my colleagues. I do, one of my concerns is setting precedent. I do think this is a special circumstance from the beginning of this project coming before the city through the planning stage, and here we are tonight. But I think because of that and because of the findings that staff provided for the variance, that I can get behind the project, and it meets all design review criteria.
Do we have a motion?
I'll do it since I have my microphone on. I move that the board adopt resolution approving design review 24-1159 and variance 24-2622 for an upper level addition elevated deck, new exterior facade, new doors and windows, retaining walls, hardscape, grading, landscaping, and variance to not provide 2 covered parking spaces and to provide 1 uncovered parking space in the front yard, and finding said action exempt from CEQA under 15303 and the resolutions attached as attachment 1 to the agenda item.
Second.
Board Member Coveney,
Yes.
Board Member Gibbs.
Yes.
Board Member Weil,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Fallman,
Yes.
Chair Gannon,
Yes.
motion carried.
All right.
Great. On behalf of the owners, apologize for being late. On behalf of the owners, they just want to thank all of you and especially staff for how hard they worked on this to get this done. I think Daniel did a great job and I want to personally thank them also. So they couldn't be here because they're back east with their parents is sick. But anyway, they wanted to thank you very much and we really appreciate the attention you gave to all this. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is 5.3, located at 31282 Cianothus Drive, ex parte.
Chair visited the site.
Same here.
Chair, I met with John Craig with the applicant team at the site.
I went by the site.
And I also went by the site and met with John Craig from the applicant team.
All right.
Here. I'll also request an expedited hearing for this one.
The only issue is we've received a letter from a resident, and I would like to the extent they have comments, the planner and the applicant to address those issues.
So is abbreviated presentation all right? Or we still can deliberate?
Yeah, we can give an abbreviated.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
So item 5.3 is for the project at Cianothus. It involves the new attached accessory dwelling unit. It exceeds the 25-foot ADU standard, height standard, but it meets the 30-foot height standard, but therefore the ADU is subject to design review. There's a 2-foot height increase in for the roof of the 3rd level. There's elevated deck and there's grading involved. And yes, correspondence was received from the neighbor across the street, and there were several concerns which I'm available for addressing.
Okay. Would you have questions for staff, Mr. Gibbs?
Chair, give me a second.
I have one.
Oh, yeah, this is the issue. The issue raised on the March 6th letter, which I just got today in public comment, reads, their home in the proposed ADU is more than 1/2 mile from public transportation, requiring a designated parking spot for the ADU. Where is the designated parking spot called out for in the plan for the ADU? So the question is, what is that required and is it satisfied?
Right. So on the presentation before you, that space is highlighted. It's located on the driveway. It, per the code, an ADU parking space can be located in the front yard setback. And therefore,
Okay.
yeah,
Yes, I
it
was looking
complies.
at the,
And there's retaining walls between the street and that parking spot, right? Is that what we're looking at?
Yes.
Answer your,
that answers my question. Thanks, Daniel.
Ms. Thalman?
I just had a quick question for Dan. In a neighborhood compatibility standpoint, this is a 4th floor ADU, correct?
Correct.
Is that synonymous with that neighborhood?
Yes. I pointed out in the staff report 2 examples nearby, but as you're driving up Cianothus, there are 4 other properties. In the staff report, I mentioned 31212 and 31214 as 4 stories, including the garage floor. But 31422, 31452, and 31460 also have 4 stories, and there's probably 2 more out there. But that's those 3 ones I picked up today.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. Happy birthday. And Christine, I'm not sure that we've worked together too much, but thank you for your service anyway. And Daniel did a great job of putting this together. I will say that it's been a long road. If you look at when this application went in, it was nearly 2 years ago, coming in April. The owners were under the impression that an ADU would be, there was an actual seminar, you might recall, in the early of 2023, suggesting that neighbors come and listen, and they did. And they were told, oh, fast track, we'll get an ADU out of this office quick. And here we are 2 years later. I'm just mentioning this because staff's been overwhelmed, and we went through 3 floor planners on this project to get to Daniel. So thank goodness he was able to pull it together. I don't really have much comment. I think the plans speak for themselves. Happy to answer any question. I think we've done all our homework, and the owners are ready to move forward. They're excited to move forward. So we appreciate your approval tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you. At this time, any member of the public wish to speak on 31282 Cianothus Drive? No? Okay. You have 3 more minutes if you, oh, yes, yes. Any members of the public? That would be you.
I know, but I didn't know whether I was
Oh.
not defending it, but we have been 26-year residents of Laguna Beach. We've bought this house in late 1999, and we've loved Laguna Beach. We love our street. We love the house we live in, and we've been very supportive of all of our neighbors through their remodels and their additions. And unfortunately, we have had to deal with a rehabilitation home right across the way, which is a lot of the questions that were asked upon our neighbor about the parking issues. But we have done everything possible to keep the parking very at ease. And we've put lifts in our garages to make sure we park in our garages. We park in our driveways as much as possible and try not to take away the public parking on our street. So I feel like we've been very patient and very kind with the fellow projects that have happened on our street. And we've had to deal with a lot of construction, as everybody does in Laguna Beach. But we felt like now that everything's at ease on our street and all the projects have been finished, and we're excited about hopefully getting our project moving forward. So we appreciate your review of our plans and hopefully moving forward.
Oh, are you part of the applicant team? Or you're a
We're
neighbor?
the owners of the house.
Oh, you're supposed to be at this table. No, this is, so this is part of your 3 minutes then.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
My 3 minutes up.
I may have
Yes.
instructed him. I wasn't sure where it was.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
So I'm very supportive of this project.
Yeah, that's what triggered.
Should we ask your wife how she feels about the project?
Yeah, that was easy. Do we have comments for the applicant? No?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Meets all the design review guidelines, and wish you luck. I'm sorry you had such a lengthy process, but you're at the final gate now, so.
And I can follow the comments. Access, that street, I watched, when I first joined the board, I sat on a fire truck and got to do a ride along, and they went to the end of that street, and I watched them back all the way up with flawlessness. Parking for the ADU, that was explained to me earlier today and explained again this evening. The overall height, floor finish, I was confused by that, but when you look at the elevations, you can see the measurements. So it's not like the finished floor of the garage goes all the way up to the ADU. So I can support the findings laid out beautifully by Mr. Latham, and I can support this project this evening.
Okay. I agree with my colleagues here. I think that the design review criteria has been met. Parking space, design articulation, your height is a little more, but it's in keeping with the rest of the neighborhood, 4 stories. And I can get behind the project.
Real quick. Yeah, I think it meets all the guidelines. I can concur with my colleagues. As far as the neighborhood compatibility, I walked up, I can't even pronounce the name of your street, but Cianothus. And there's bigger homes than what yours appears from the street. I also note that the 4-story ADU is not really visible from the street in any event. In fact, when Chair and I were there, we had trouble trying to find it in the story polls. So clearly meets all the guidelines. I support it.
Yeah, I concur with my colleagues.
No, I was just going to offer a motion.
Okay, yeah. Make a motion.
Make a motion to approve the project at 31282 Cianothus Drive and to adopt resolution 242381 approving design review 242381 and coastal development permit 242382 for a new attached accessory dwelling unit exceeding the ADU height standard, in addition more than 15 feet above grade, and an elevated deck, and finding said action exempt from CEQA pursuant to section 15303 of the CEQA guidelines.
And I'll second that.
Board Member Coveney,
Yes.
Board Member Gibbs.
Yes.
Board Member Wild,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Thalman.
Yes.
Chair Gannon,
Yes,
motion carried.
thank you.
Thank you all
Thank you very much. Cenotes means Greek goddess of trees, by the way, so.
Greek goddess of trees.
Yeah, I have no idea where
Okay.
they came up with that, but.
Only
that's
if we
what-
can
yeah.
pronounce it.
I'm 25 years, I'm still trying to say it right. Thank you.
Cianothus, thank you. Next up is 5.4, located at 1970 Temple Hills Drive. While the applicants take their position, all of the applicants take their position, do we have ex parte?
I met with the architect, Oz Alamandares at site.
I spoke with the applicant and also Nancy Sarah.
I did a site visit and tried speaking with the applicant. Somehow I don't know if the email I got wrong or then I left a message, but anyway, I made attempts to contact the applicant, but did a site visit. So
And
I
did a
also
site
met with
visit.
the owners for the record.
you did a site visit?
Site visit.
Okay,
Site visit.
all right. Mr. Wank, your fabulous presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Design Review Board and members of the public. Item 5.4 is a request for design review and a revocable encroachment permit at 1970 Temple Hills Drive, located in the R1 zone. The property is currently developed with a one-story single-family dwelling and attached two-car garage constructed in 1951. The proposed project includes additions and alterations to the existing single-family residence, including an upper-level addition, chimney height change, new elevated decks, a trash storage in the front setback, a pedestrian entry feature, a pool and spa, and landscaping. A revocable encroachment permit is proposed for improvements within the unimproved right-of-way, consisting of a driveway gate, pool security fencing, gates, and stepping stones. Here we see the proposed front elevation, and a section through the property is shown here. The applicant is proposing a pool and spa as shown in this rendering. Staff has not received any public correspondence regarding the project. Staff recommends that the board conduct a public hearing and adopt resolution 25-0017, approving design review 25-0017, and a revocable encroachment permit 25-0016, and finding said action exempt from CEQA. That will conclude my staff summary, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wank. Does the board have questions for staff? No? No?
One, the trash enclosure, is it really an enclosure or is it just a space for the trash cans to go in? Will they be fully enclosed into like a, or just, like, there's just a space for them, so they'll be visible from the street? Not at all.
All right. You have 5 minutes for your presentation.
Hello, board and staff. My name is Oz Amadeus. Thank you so much for all your assistance and help. I'm sorry for missing your call. I did get everyone else's. And as far as the process, we had one neighbor at 2040 Temple Hills, that house to the right, had one comment about the window looking into their house in the master bathroom. We changed that to an awning and frosted glass to appease, and then cutting the trees at her window at that location. Other than that, everything else has been cleared and we're looking forward to move forward. That's it.
Thank you. At this time, any members of the public wish to speak on this project located at 1970 Temple Hills Drive? Nope. Okay. You have 3 more minutes if you'd like to continue or field questions from us. So I'll start with a question. The awning and frosted glass, is that part of the resolution? It does, or
yes,
does it have to be a condition of approval?
It's already been changed on the plans.
Okay, thank you.
And the same with the
The
tree
tree height,
Yeah.
is that memorialized on the landscape plan?
Yes.
height and everything detailed. Okay.
There's a bright
I know.
reflection that it's hard to see.
I know, I'm going to put my sunglasses on in a minute.
I have a question regarding the REP, if you can pull that up. So I'm trying to find the property, and I'm blinded right now, so I can't see anything. It looks like there is a, yeah, it lasts a while. It looks like there's a seating area in the revocable encroachment permit area, if you can pull that up. It looks like a fire pit with 3 chairs. Or am I misreading that?
It's
Prefab,
not within the
fireball.
revocable encroachment permit area.
It's not in it?
No.
Okay.
No, it's more
That was
towards
my
the-
only concern.
Yeah, no,
Okay,
it's not.
thank you.
It's just the front yard, right? And the front yard setback within the property line.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Mr. Gibbs, would you like to start us off?
Of course. Yeah, I spent some time, looking at the project and at the story polls. I think it's a great project, very cool. And I also appreciated you kind of walking me through and then sending me the renderings. It's a beautiful project. I see no material impact on neighbors, no privacy with the corrections made, no view equity issues. Mass and scale is really not an issue because you really don't see it from the street. And the landscaping along the street, I understand, is not changing. The revocable encroachment permit area is having the items that are typically done and that are appropriate for the revocable encroachment permit, the driveway gate, pool, security fencing, and stepping stones. So I think we can make all the findings for that. And for all of those reasons, I support the project.
And I'll go next. I can support what Mr. Gibbs just said. And had I seen an issue, I would have tried harder to contact you. But once I went to the site and reviewed the project, and I didn't see the necessity. So yeah, I can support the project this evening and support Mr. Wank's fabulous design review findings, and can echo what Board Member Gibbs just said.
And I too, I'll go now with my major. I concur with my colleagues. I think it's a lovely project. I think it's going to be a really wonderful home for you guys now. It seems like you've really made everything just a resort-like setting, which will be great. Definitely findings have been made for the REP. Thank you for reaching out to your neighbors and responding to their request for support with that window and the trees. I appreciate that. So I think all the findings have been made for design review criteria, and I can support the project tonight.
And I would echo my colleagues' comments as well. I can support the project tonight. It meets all the design review guidelines, and it's a modest improvement.
Yeah, and I concur with my colleagues. It meets the design review criteria. It's a modest improvement. The front yard setback or the front yard improvements really add to the streetscape and very neighborhood compatible. So I'm supportive of the project this evening.
Do we have a motion for approval?
Excuse me, Chair.
No, you're out of order, sorry. The public hearing has been closed. Yes.
Do we call public?
Yeah.
Yeah. Chair, I move that the board approve. No, I recall that they did. That the board approved design review 24-2381 and coastal development permit 24-2382 for new oops, I've got the.
Yeah, I was going to say you're reading.
I apologize. Let me go back to Temple Hills, and I got it right now. Okay, start again. I move that the board adopt resolution 250017, which is attached to the agenda item, approving design review 25-2381 25-0017 and revocable encroachment permit 25-0016 for additions and alterations to a single-family dwelling and proposed improvements within the public right-of-way, and finding said action exempt from CEQA pursuant to 15301.
Second.
Board Member Coveney,
Yes.
Board Member Gibbs,
Yes.
Board Member Weil. Board Member Weil.
I open the floor for public comments.
I don't recall.
Tom recalls it. You
In the
recall it.
minutes, do you have that in the minutes, Maria, what it was called?
Hang on. And so once again, so we'll, for the sake of this argument, let's go ahead and those votes have been vitiated and go ahead and explore the public comment and we'll call. roll
Yeah,
call
I,
again.
I think given some uncertainty, I think unless we all recall it, I recall it. But if Board Member Thalman does not, I would suggest we would revoke our votes and open the public
Yeah.
hearing.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think it's fair. Yeah.
Hold the motion. Open.
Reopen the, okay, so
Did you wish to speak, ma'am?
we can reopen the public comments if you'd like to speak on this project. Can you
Please,
come,
just
you had
to
a,
the-
yeah.
to
3
the-
minutes. Yeah.
Sorry that I'm late. I was told that this project was coming up earlier. And so that's why I wasn't here at 5 o'clock. But I'm the neighbor at 2040 Temple Hills Drive, which is directly, I guess you would say, to the left of this project. So I'm curious about the easement approachment that you've been talking about. I don't understand that. And if you could explain that to me, I would appreciate it.
Are you talking about the revocable encroachment permit?
Mhm.
Okay.
That was the issue that I raised. And
Wait, there's no
And so, yeah,
conversation.
correct.
Just
So,
make
yeah,
your
let her
comment.
finish her public comments and you guys can
Yeah.
discuss them as a.
So, yeah, if you can explain to me exactly what that is and how it impacts, I don't know if it impacts the street, impacts my joint property line. I don't understand that. And I'm also curious about the retaining wall that potentially will be around the pool area.
Does that conclude your comments?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You have 3 minutes to speak on whatever you'd like to speak on, but if you don't mind addressing her concerns.
Yes, the revocable encroachment permit is existing areas that are already there, so there should be no impact at all to the street or her property lines. And then as far as the retaining walls go, they're going to be fully engineered. We have soils reports, civil engineers, there'll be shoring done, and there'll be no damage to her house at that location.
Thank you. Does that conclude your comments? Okay. Board, do you have questions or?
Chair, can I just brief?
Absolutely.
So the public comment, when it comes to an REP, it's really just an application of where the property line ends and homes connect to the unfinished part of the street. So it's really allows people to extend their driveways between their property line to the street or walkways. Most of their improvements are within their property line. It's just the driveway components that's coming forward. It's up on the screen. So it's more just a part of how properties connect to the street in most cases. And it's usually not an area of concern, but it's more a formality for how we process it.
I also note it's very common throughout the city in almost all the areas to have areas where next to the street may be owned by the city for 5 feet or so, or depending, where normal features such as a driveway or a gate are commonly allowed by the REP process. We have to make certain findings which are in the code that provides, protection to the city in the event it needs to access those areas, and they do not impact, at least in this case, they do not impact neighbors.
Thank you for those wonderful explanations. Can we move on, please?
Yeah, can we pick up from the prior motion?
Well,
and
I think
take a roll
we
call or
should
restate it?
each make.
I stand by my original
Right, we
comments.
should each say, in light of what we've heard, our views don't change,
Correct,
and we
and-
still feel, so let me start, since I started before. Yeah, in light of what the comments were, I don't think they impacted any of the findings for the guidelines or the variance or excuse me, for the REP. And for that reason, my views, I still support the project.
I concur and support the project.
Ditto.
Yes, same.
And I would concur.
So I
Alright.
think I need to do a new motion, and let me get the
We
right.
need do we need a new motion?
Nope, yeah, the motion is still on the floor.
Yeah.
and
Is it
so-
still on the
yeah,
floor?
And so we
Yes.
can take roll call. but
And
start
Okay,
from the-
Ms. Coveney
start from the
seconded the motion.
Board Member Coveney,
Yes.
Board Member Gibbs.
Yes.
Board Member Weil,
Yes,
Chair Pro Tem Thalman,
Yes.
Chair Gannon,
Yes,
motion carried.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Next is 5.5, located at 276 Cajon Drive. 276 Cajon, that's CAJON Drive. Ex parte. I met with the property owner, spoke with Steve Cortani, and I visited the apartments to the hillside, to the right.
I met at the project with Steve Cortani. I also walked over to the apartment at 280 Cajon and 282. And I spoke to both the tenants on the upstairs and went onto the deck in the upstairs for one of the tenants. And then the downstairs tenant facing the alley, I went into their apartment and spoke to them. I don't have the names of any of the tenants, however.
And I spoke with Steve Cortani, and as I was walking the property as well as going to the adjacent properties.
And I visited the site with Steve Cortani and Garth Jorgensen.
Same. I also met with the applicant as well in her home, and I met with one of the tenants. I believe his name was Alex, but I didn't write his name down. So
All right. Mr. Latham?
All right, item 5.5 is for a project at 276 Cajon Drive. The project site is located in North Laguna. The project involves a landscaping plan, and the recommendation is to conduct a public hearing, deliberate on the maintained landscape dimensions, and consider appropriate conditions to address view equity and privacy, and ultimately adopt the resolution. That concludes the presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Latham. Do we have questions for staff? Mr. Gibbs?
The only question I had is concerning the heights as set forth in the landscape plan. The ARC, and I'm not a landscape person, is 40 feet high. Am I reading that correctly, Dan?
Let me have a look.
Read it.
Yeah, that can't possibly. Oh, the king palm. Yeah, that could be 40 feet.
Can I answer that, Daniel?
Yeah.
It's a palm tree, and it's going to top off at that height.
Oh, is that the existing palm tree? there?
Yes, it is.
Let's give the applicant their 5 minutes for a presentation.
Okay, that was my only question. Go ahead.
Any more questions for staff? Okay, you have 5 minutes for your presentation.
Thank you, Daniel. Could you cue up my slides, please? Good evening, board. My name is Steve Cortani. I'm a little bit better prepared for this one than the last, marginally anyway. So my slides will be up presently. The bottom line on this particular project is that a record of view was filed during escrow when the existing foliage was substantially lowered. And the individuals who filed for the record of view did nothing wrong. There was nothing unlawful about it, but, you know, I do kind of consider it to be opportunistic. And if you look at the record of view photograph, which is superimposed in the middle of Larry Noakes's letter, Larry summarizes what he was trying to accomplish earlier and with a prior property owner. That record of view photograph shows Susan's roof. It shows the railing over in the left corner, and it shows the ocean view. So staff agreed with my argument that the record of view really couldn't be sustained when privacy was such a big concern. So Mark Weiner made that decision. I met with Amber Dobson after that, and in the subsequent slides, we'll see what I had discussed with staff. So the first slide with that little white slash was referring to the lemon tree. And Amber asked that if we could lower it to protect the views from the lower unit, and that tree ended up at 11 feet. And Susan's been, in a very diligent manner, been keeping this pruned for the past year. I was requested by a board member to lower it another 2 feet. That would take the lemon tree down to 9 feet, and we were willing to do so. Next slide. This is a picture of the remaining 8 trees that form this privacy wall. And you can see there are 2 slashes there that Amber made. And they both have to do with the ridge of the 2 adjacent roofs. So she asked if we could bring those down to that point. That would be roughly 20 feet or 2 feet higher than the existing guardrail. Next slide. So this is a slightly updated plan that I think that Daniel had a chance to look at. If you look on the right-hand side below the photograph, in red, it names the particular tree, the brachychiton. And I was asked by 3 board members if we could lower that tree to the point where it would not exceed the height of the existing ridge. So the bottom line for us on this project is we don't want to deny ocean view for the people who live in the apartment, but we're pretty adamant that the property is not going to be livable either from Susan's master bedroom or from the ceremonial areas in back, the fire pit and fire area. So we're asking that our privacy be maintained by the board establishing a height of the vegetation and to ensure that Susan can enjoy her property. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, any members of the public wish to speak on 276 Cajon Street? Yeah.
Is this working? Yes.
Yes.
Good evening, board members, and happy birthday to Jessica and Christine. I want to thank you all and staff for working on this project, visiting the project, and I know I've spoken with several of you about the issue. My name is Garth Jorgensen. I'm one of the owners of the uphill property in question, 280 Cajon Street. We purchased the property in 2002 and have enjoyed it for almost 25 years. I'm here to ask you to keep the trees at the heights as documented in the view preservation records of view with the city that was approved March 9th, 2021. Steve mentioned this was an opportunistic cut during an escrow, but we had been maintaining those trees with the downhill neighbors. There's been multiple owners for the better part of 20 years. For most of the 20 years, the tree height was kept. We're talking about the ones that are along the fence line at the fence line, which is about 8 feet off the ground from the 276 property. We worked with, so the property has had 4 owners since we've had ownership. And the first two owners over 2 decades worked with us to keep the tree levels and preserve both the ground level view and the second level view of our properties. And so we would coordinate with the different owners and oftentimes, contract with the landscapers to have those cut, and then we'd share the cost of the services. The property changed hands in 2020 to a person, not the current owner, but a person that just refused to keep the trees lower. At that time is when we initiated the view preservation process, which Steve referred to as opportunistic. And we documented a view, both ground level view and upper level view, that we'd enjoyed for almost 20 years. My concern with letting these trees grow to the 20 feet level that Steve is proposing is these are fast growing trees. Since they were trimmed down at the end of 2020, they have grown 15 to 20 feet in the 4 years. So if these are let to grow 20 feet, which is the railing on the second level, within a year, they're going to have to be trimmed. How are these going to be trimmed? I don't get a sense that this owner or future owners are going to be trimming it, because what are they going to trim it from our upper level balcony? It's just, we're at a financial loss here. The views are the value of the property, and this is a
In
take
conclusion?
from us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for listening to me.
Yes, thank you. Any other speakers? No? Okay, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, hello. Thank you for listening to our position. So when I moved into this property 2 years ago, I interacted with the previous owner that was who was just described, and she and the realtor told me. So just to tell you where the trees were at that time, they were several feet above the top of the railing, and that's how I saw the property and liked the property and bought the property. That was the property that I bought. And it had sufficient privacy for me to enjoy the garden. And that was one of the reasons I bought the property. Anyway, the owner and the realtor did tell me that when that owner bought the house a year previous, she was only there for about a year, the trees had also been higher, approximately at the height where I bought the trees, the house. And when she was in escrow, the owner went and cut the trees down to the level that he described, which is, the top of the fence, not even the top of the rail. She had a fit. She almost had a heart attack when she moved in because no one had consulted her. And so she hired a lawyer, Larry. I think Steve has provided those notes to you. And the story that I was given was that this issue was resolved and there'd been some interactions, and she had hired an arborist to regrow the trees, and that required injecting some of the trees that were very slow growers. So then by the time I moved into the property, the trees had grown to an acceptable height, which was a little bit above the railing, which would be where I would be happy with. And in fact, when that was described to me, I hired the same arborist to come 3 months later or 2 months later to come and trim the trees, being diligent. And so I paid him several $1,000s to do this. And I thought that I was being a good neighbor, and it was done. And then several weeks after that, I got cited by the city with, showing this other view. And so that's how it is. That's how it was. And in terms of pruning, I would be very diligent about pruning because as I do with the rest of the house and the garden, I keep it up. So I would definitely prune it once a year, or if necessary, or whatever is necessary. Anything else?
Conclude your comments. Does that conclude your comments? Okay. Do you guys have questions for the applicant? Board members, do you have questions for the applicant?
I have one question. I talked to Steve about this, but 20 feet, I think you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, was approximately 2 feet above the rail?
That's correct.
Okay, and would you be willing to agree to do it at 18 feet? In other words, the height of the rail? The reason I ask is because I sat down on the deck and I sat down in the living room. And if it goes higher than the railing, it cuts off their view and primary room. So I want to know if you're willing to do that.
I think we have a lesson from 1813 Temple Hills Drive. If we're not given a little extra height, if we are one leaf higher than the top of that rail, we're going to get fined. So we'd like to have a little bit of room to work with if we could, Tom. So
It's going to be a not to exceed, whether it's 2 feet above or at the rail. And anyway, I'll leave it for my deliberations, but I get your point.
Oh, okay, thank you.
That's going to be my comments too. What was that address on Temple Hills?
1813.
Yeah, 1813. We might recall was just recently. And we're past the 14 days, so we can discuss it. That homeowner got fined every time the leaf was 6 inches, and it was just had to be one leaf. So to prevent that from happening again, I'd be open to having, I was going to say a 3 feet, because that's what we gave the applicant for the other one. So from the railing to 3 feet above. But I'm open to hearing what other board members say.
Because I kind of feel strongly about this. I looked carefully, I went back today to see about the privacy issue and whether going above the railing is necessary for the privacy, and I don't think so. And in fact, my preference would be to have it at either, the deck level or 1 foot above. I think privacy is protected. That said, I think, given what you said, I don't think I can support going higher than a not to exceed at the railing of the upper deck, because it's a primary room for that resident. If it goes above, it blocks the view. Given that I don't see a serious privacy issue from it being the trees being lower than the railing. In fact, the trees aren't right up against the railing. They're set back. So they provide a screen even if they're the height of the railing. But from my view, I think it needs to be not to exceed the top of the railing. I can't support anything higher. Okay, to deal with the view preservation issue, the code is very clear that an exemption from the view preservation ordinance is vegetation that was approved, and this is a quote, vegetation that was approved through the design review process and in which vegetation height limits were established pursuant to section 25.05.040, and that's the design review section of the ordinance. So we have no choice but to consider the application, and the application is independent of your view preservation rights. So the way I look at it is as if the view preservation had not been done at all. And so I balance, and the two guidelines at issue here are privacy and view equity. I think privacy is protected with a not to exceed of that railing. And even if you went lower, it would still be protected. But I think that the necessary view is protected from the primary residence of the the second floor tenant at the railing. Can't go higher. The other issue is the downstairs tenant. I walked in their room. Their only primary room with a view corridor is out the window that goes along the alley. And I appreciate you going down to 9 feet, and I think that does the trick. It just needed some more trimming to protect that view corridor. And again, that would achieve view equity at the 9 feet. So that's where I stand.
You want me to go? I concur. I agree that I think it's at the railing height. It's an easy thing to maintain. Everybody can see it. There's no wishy-washy. Well, is that a bringing measuring tapes out? It's pretty clear-cut line. It'll still provide privacy and it allows for what ocean view is available to the upper level. As far as the lower level, there's really not a lot of view opportunities there. So once that whole tree area fills in, you'll even have more privacy down there as long as you keep that, as Tom mentioned, the 9-foot lemon tree for that one unit. But otherwise, I think, and I appreciate Tom defining what's it called? The preservation. Yeah, because I wasn't certain about our responsibility there. It seems like it makes sense that these trees are there. It makes sense for both properties, in my opinion. And if you can kindly keep them trimmed to as they request, I think it's going to give you what you need. And I think your roses that you had in your flower boxes were lovely. So that's my point.
Ms. Thalman?
I appreciate Board Member Gibbs' analysis of what we're deciding here. I think that's important to know that even though there's a view preservation established, that the critical issue tonight is establishing a design review decision. And I would agree with my former colleagues. I think this needs to be a compromise. And I believe that the view, if you reduce it down to the ridge, not the ridge, the railing, I'm sorry. I think that's an excellent compromise. It still achieves privacy. And as was stated about the lemon tree, to bring that down to 9 feet, which at least helps on the lower unit. I think that's a compromise situation. But, you know, when either side is never exactly happy, that's compromise. So.
Yeah, and I'm looking at this kind of with like fresh eyes, right? There is the view preservation, but it's really the board's determination of where it balances view equity and privacy as we try to move forward and give the balance to both property owners. I think when seeing the view preservation, I note that it was really taken from the upper level, right? So when I was at the site and discussing view, you know, there's a carport on that lower level that, you know, I can't necessarily say that's the most significant part of a home to achieve a view is from the carport. And also to balance the element of privacy that if the trees were at that lowest railing height at the driveway, that would not provide privacy. So for me, I completely concur with Board Member Gibbs' analysis that it really needs to be at the railing height. And I think I had it measured. I took a measuring tape. It was at like 18.6, 19 feet. But I would like that elevation to be memorialized from an elevation standpoint.
Yeah, do you
as it's
have
recorded in the final minutes or the final landscape plan? Because we've got 18 and a half, 19, 20 feet from grade, that means something different. I think it just needs to be marked at that elevation.
Yeah, how can we do that? That's the question. Daniel, are you guys, Garrett, do you have an idea how we can do that?
Yeah, Garrett.
No, or we can just say the railing, but the railing can of course change.
So you could go based off the railing elevation or plus or minus.
Why don't we do the deck no higher than 3 feet above the deck? It's a 3-foot railing.
Right.
Because if they ever go to a 4-foot, I'd still want it at 3 feet. By the way, Steve, do you know what the elevation of the
Board
deck
Member
is?
Gibbs, may I chime in?
Yeah.
So regardless, we're setting a precedent off of a marking off of another property. That property could change. That's why I'm recommending that we memorialize where that height is as of today and put it in the record for this application.
I agree. The question is, how do we do that?
So we just tell staff that's our mark and then confirm it on their landscape, that elevation on their landscape plan post the hearing and the resolution.
Can we
Is
do
that right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, no, I think I agree with you 100%.
Okay. I lost track. I had one more point to make on that height thing.
Are you talking about the palm tree?
No, the palm trees, we traditionally let those grow. The front yard, setting the height on those at the ridge line, I think is more appropriate. We're looking at the landscape plan. I think we need to mark that one on this set of landscape documents. It's at your protection and at the protection of the views of the neighbor.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm supportive of that height. There was one more point. The lemon tree at 9 feet, I think is appropriate as well as
We can do 9 feet from grade. That,
from grade. That one's fine.
yeah.
So are we going to direct staff to get the measurement from the railing?
Right, so
Patrick, how do we do? Do we leave a blank in the resolution or we direct?
Actually, I think what could also work is, and I believe this is what Board Member Weil was saying, is that you guys can base it off of the railing as it exists as of March 13th, 2025 at the property at 280 Cone Street.
Yeah, and staff to just verify the elevation in the final document.
Okay, I think that works for me. You want me to do?
I'm good. I can do the motion.
Yes. I'm going to do a motion.
You did.
It's an easy one. That's why I make a motion for approval for a property at 276 Cajon. Resolution 242559, approving design review 242550 for landscaping and finding said action exempt from CEQA under section 15301, with the condition of approval that the trees along the back property line do not exceed the railing height of the existing property. And staff will memorialize that
The elevation
by providing elevation
on the plans, on the.
I'm just going to
approved plan.
clarify.
on the
It's,
approved plan.
it's not necessarily the back property line. It's the property line between 280 and 276 Cajon that we should
The
clarify.
site property line between 280 and 276 Cajon.
Right, and well, the only thing, it would be the trees, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 trees along that property line as depicted in the landscaping plan. Then with respect to,
Then do we have to add the 9 foot for above grade for the lemon tree?
Yes.
and in addition, do we have to do the ridge line for the tree in front? So we
Board
add that
members,
as a
we
condition.
have a revised plan that was shown here this evening that depicts that,
Okay.
that tree. So we'll use that particular plan and replace it with the plan that's in your packet. They're identical, but for that one note, so we don't need to address it.
Okay.
It'll be
That's
part of
fine.
the plan approval.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
May I have a discussion? Would we want to require biannual trimming?
Well, it's a not to exceed, so, no, I don't want to. I don't know how fast those trees grow. It's a not to exceed, which means if it does exceed it, you can call code enforcement. So it's good to keep it a little lower. Okay.
Keep it maintained.
Which is why I wanted to have a range. Okay, so I had a motion, I seconded.
Board Member Coveney,
Yes.
Board Member Gibbs,
Yes.
Board Member Weil,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Thalman,
Yes.
Chair Gannon,
Yes,
motion carried.
thank you.
Thank you, board. Compromises are good. When I run into you all on the street, and if I address you as Solomon, you'll understand, right? Thank you.
Thank you. Salmon. Next up is 5.6, located at 232 La Brea Street. Last but not least. Do we have ex parte by the board? I did a site visit and that's it.
Yes, I did a site visit, had several discussions previously on this project.
I did a site visit and I met with William Mendoza.
I went by the site, but had done several previous visits with the architect.
Site visit.
All right. Mr. Wank, your fabulous presentation.
Item 5.6 is a request for design review at 232 La Brea Street, located in the R2 zone. The property is currently developed with a single-family dwelling with an attached one-car garage. The project was previously heard on July 25th and October 10th of 2024. At the October 10th design review board hearing, the board expressed concerns regarding the mass and scale, design articulation, neighborhood compatibility, access, and privacy. The board requested that the building be lowered further, additional articulation be provided, the proposed balcony be changed to a Juliet balcony, the building be pushed back from the street, the elm tree be removed, the garage side door not to be glass, the driveway be graded down, the sidewalk carried throughout the parcel, and the landscape and lighting be revised to be more clearly indicated as to the proposed improvements. The proposed project includes construction of a new single-family structure and addition to an existing single-family structure with additions exceeding 15 feet in height, grading, elevated decks, landscaping, and maintenance of non-conforming conditions for the existing unit. The existing unit is non-conforming to side yard setbacks and rear yard setbacks and currently contains 1 parking space. The applicant has provided revised plans with revisions following the board's comments as outlined in the staff report. One of the revisions identified in the staff report is the proposed great room addition, pushing back 5 feet 4 inches from the property line. I just wanted to clarify that the great room, which is on the upper level of building B, is being pushed back from the 20-foot front yard setback that is currently proposed. And the distance is actually 6 feet 4 inches for a total of 26 feet 4 inches from the front property line as shown here. Staff has not received public correspondence regarding the project, and staff is recommending that the board conduct a public hearing, adopt resolution 24-0484, approving design review 24-0484 and coastal development permit 24-0186, and finding said action exempt from CEQA. That will conclude my staff summary, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wank. Does the board have questions for staff? No, going around the room. All right. You have 5 minutes for your presentation.
Good evening again, board members. Lovely to see you again. Staff, Garrett, thanks very much for that presentation. Our project is located in an extremely aging neighborhood, prime for redevelopment, which we're seeing a lot of right now. The landscape is changing as well, significantly, I might add, and things are trending upward. The smaller single-family homes are making way for much larger two-story, and the cost of the land in this area, or with the cost of land in that area, that's really unlikely to change. That's going to continue very clearly. Since we started our journey a couple of years back, we've seen a number of projects in the area with similar scale and mass to ours that have been able to move forward. I feel like the scale relationship is based primarily on the adjacent properties and not the overall neighborhood. And unfortunately, we're in a position where the 2 houses on each side of us are the 2 shortest 1-stories in the neighborhood. So I kind of wish that there was a middle ground between what the zoning code will allow and what that scale and mass looks like to the board. It feels like the concessions that we're making are permanent and they're based on the current development climate. And it seems like we're going to leave a lot on the table as development progresses in the area. So that is my dissertation. Now moving to the items that we've adjusted or altered or presented in this new set of plans. Our building pad is pushed to the absolute lowest level it can go in order to preserve gravity flow for stormwater. We don't want to go any lower and have a pump. So we've moved it down as low as it can possibly go. The primary roof has been lowered an additional 12 inches and is now between 2.5 and 5.5 feet below the height allowed by the municipal code. The front deck, which previously cantilevered into the front setback, has been pushed back to stack above the garage completely within the setback, and all the other decks have been eliminated completely. The majority of the second floor was pushed back, as Garrett had mentioned, 6 feet. Unfortunately, when I drove out and looked at the stringing, it doesn't appear that that was flagged. So it gives the impression that the building is still very, very massive. But what you're seeing there is a roof 6 feet back from the 1-story component. So it's a little hard to pick up. So we forwarded a couple of additional rendering 3D shots that we hope were distributed and kind of graphically represented that a little bit more. There was one in the original package that I felt worked because it showed it from a northern perspective, so you can really see the offset and the side of the building tucked back. But in meeting with Mr. Gibbs, that apparently wasn't very clear, so that's on me. That's my mistake, but hopefully we were able to get the new ones. The plates in the building are 8 feet at the lower level and range from 7.5 to 8.5 at the upper level. The 8.5 is in the back, 7.5 is in the front. I don't think that we can push much lower than that at this point in time. And the habitable spaces are not excessive in dimension. Bedrooms are 11 by 12. Our living room, our great room is 12 by 14, which is the size of a bedroom. So we don't have excessive room sizes anywhere. And the overall floor area seems to be, based on my research, pretty consistent with what's in the neighborhood now, but smaller than what's going on around the neighborhood now. So at this point, we're happy to answer any questions. I don't think I have anything more that I can add to this at this point. Do you guys have anything that you want to add?
We specifically looking for a house we bought in an R2 neighborhood to build a home for our family of 4 and our 2 mother-in-laws that we want to, we want to combine housing. And the current crisis in California, where there's a lot of homes that people are looking for right now, we think, having this multi-generational, 2 homes on 1 residence is equitable. So we're just asking that you consider that as part of your decision.
All right. Does that conclude your comments?
I believe so.
Oh. At this time, any ghost in the audience wish to speak on this project? Yeah.
Just be careful what you ask for.
Oh, I'm friendly with Casper. All right. Do you guys have 3 minutes? You have 3 minutes more. Thank you. I have one question, since we'll move into questions. With the 2 mother-in-laws, do they get along? So they don't mind living together? Did they know your plan? Okay. All right. All right. Oh, man, you guys are lucky. Man, okay. Those are the only questions I have. Any other questions? Oh, I have a question. Do you guys play Rummikub? No.
Jessica, can I go with comments?
Yes, go
All
ahead.
right. So, I mean, I think you guys have done a fair amount of what we've asked, and it's been very positive experience. I appreciate you guys' concessions and really trying to work the project to fit into the neighborhood. I am supportive of the project as you've made it to as you're proposing it today. Lowering the plate heights, lowering the grade to the lowest possible, really trying to get it down is super helpful to accommodate the 2 stories that you're trying to do. It is a gentrifying area of town, and I think this will set the pattern a little bit more appropriate as it goes forward, while still acknowledging kind of the historical homes that are nearby. One of the challenges was the non-conforming structure that's next to you on the downhill side, and I think you've accommodated the reasonability to provide yourself the benefit of building and accommodating the needs of the application, while still recognizing kind of the challenges of their nonconformities. One of the earlier ones was the window for the uphill neighbor, still being able to see view lines down the street, which the guidelines call for, trying to preserve those down the street views. And I think by creating that lower level pullback in the upper level, you've achieved that for me. So view equity and privacy have been balanced in that redesign. I know I was concerned about the access through and around the property, given the nonconformities on the rear structure, while still by taking out that elm tree, I think that provides you the reasonable development to build the retaining walls necessary and or to provide the ingress and egress through the courtyard into the rear or the alley that might be appropriate. So for me, you've done everything as necessary. I'm supportive of the outline by staff, and I can support the project this evening.
Ms. Tallman, you ready?
I'll wait.
Okay. Ms. Coveney, are you ready?
Check on the olive and the strawberry tree. I agree with Mr. Weil, Board Member Weil. I think it's come a long way. I think it looks really a nice, refined, a very Laguna quality architecture. I think it really fits in well there. And as Louis pointed out, I think it is going to set a precedent for the rest of the street as things start in that area start to, in the R2 area, start to develop. The only question I have is about planting of the strawberry trees, or maybe it's not a question because I guess the questioning is closed, but they grow quite high, and I'm just a little concerned of your neighbor on the hill upside there, that side window, which is pretty much being engulfed by the building. But if there's any issue there with them, is there some condition we might consider putting on the height of those in order to avoid calling code enforcement and stuff? But those seem pretty high right now. I think some of them are going to go up to 20, and that's the only condition potentially of approval. Once we see what everybody else does, I'll drill down a little bit here, but otherwise, I think it's compatible. I think you've dealt with the privacy issues by removing some of those balconies that were of concern to the lower units in the apartment below, and articulation by pushing back that family or great room by giving us a little articulation in the front helped. Mass and scale, it's still a little large, but I feel like by, again, you giving us that relief in the front, it definitely helps there. View equity, there was just unfortunately no way to save the view to the hillside neighbor on that side. They still have their front view, but I just think anything in there, we couldn't constrict you to a single story. So I think you've met all the criteria.
Ms. Tallman?
Okay. Well, I appreciate that you addressed a majority of the board's concerns. I know my concern was mass and scale and height, and those all have been addressed in this iteration of your design. And I agree with Board Member Weil's comments. His were much more detailed, and I can support a majority of what he mentioned, his comments. But I believe the constraints of the site in that particular area, I understand what you're up against, plus what you're trying to achieve with two different units, being an R2 zoned lot, which makes a big difference as well, particularly in this neighborhood. So with those, I believe it's achieved all the design review guidelines, and I can support the project tonight.
Beautiful. Mr. Gibbs?
Yeah, I think I had the biggest problem, because of the back house, to get a good size new construction, I think in building B or whatever, you had to put a lot of program toward the front. And I think you're correct, Brian, that this is going to set a precedent in that neighborhood. I walked the neighborhood this time and last time, and it's going to create a new standard of mass and scale on La Brea. And I expect other houses are going to want to do something similar because the mass and scale going back is not as impactful as it is in the front as affecting the character of the neighborhood. And, I resist going to all two-story right in your face along any of the streets in North Laguna, from the tree streets all the way up to Viejo. I think it changes the character and it would not comply with the guidelines. And that's why I made my positions known on both the prior, or I think this is the second hearing. I wasn't at the first hearing. It's still close in my mind. It's still pretty massy, scaly. But with moving the, what you've done, moving the deck and the great room back 5 feet creates articulation, which I think significantly reduces the mass and scale in the appearance, and the recessed portion, which again, I had not fully studied the plans, and I think I apologize that I had not fully studied the plans, and it was based on my conversation with Mr. Mendoza that I kind of came away that there wasn't a lot of changes. But with those two features, well, I'm not happy with continuing to expand the bubble greatly in setting these kind of precedents with a large amount of mass and scale on the front. I think you've done the job needed to comply with the guideline. So, with that said, I'm not as close with mass and scale as my colleagues, but otherwise it's a beautiful project. I appreciate everything else you've done to accommodate the neighbors, to reduce the height of the building. It's important that you do those things, in my opinion, because it is going to be a building that is going to set the character of La Brea for a long time as the other houses go through, and set the standard. And so by adding that articulation compared to the first or the second, I think you're going to set a much better standard. And for that, I appreciate what you've done, and I can support the project.
I thought I was going to have to make comments to try to sway Board Member Gibbs to support the project. This is an R2 lot. I love that you guys made amends to, like he said, this is going to be the precedence for that street, even though this is probably one of few R2 lots. The fact that you guys took the board's direction and minimized what was presented at the street, hands off to you. I appreciate you guys working with us on that and appealing to that neighborhood. And I can support this project. And it was close last time, so I believe I made the findings last time and just had a few corrections, and you guys made those corrections. And I support what the other board members had to say, most of them. And yeah, anyone ready to make a motion?
May I follow up on Board Member
Oh,
Cameron's
right.
comment?
Yeah, I wanted-
on
the
that? So
strawberry
there's the
tree.
two trees in the front yard on Cajon Street. That was what your question was, right?
No.
One of them's a strawberry, one of them's an olive.
On Cajon or on this street?
On Cajon.
No, I'm
Or sorry,
La Brea.
La Brea.
Yeah, I'm like other one. Yeah, it's the
On the
ones
La
in
Brea,
the-
it's right out
primarily in the front. I'm not so worried about the courtyard area, but
So there's the two, you've got the olive one is positioned closer to the street and the strawberry is positioned closer to the house. Is that correct, Garrett?
yeah, all of those will affect the front
How
view.
high were you thinking?
Well, I can't quite remember the slope of the hillside there as to, I don't want to make them too short that, you guys don't get that kind of balance with your home. But I do know if I was standing at their front window, the neighbors looking out, I would think they shouldn't exceed 8 feet.
May I recommend one thing real quick?
Yes, please, you do.
If we swap the position, may I engage with them? If we
Yes.
swap the positions of them, because the olive tree is positioned to grow taller than the strawberry tree. So if you put one in front of the other, cap the strawberry tree at like 10 feet, which is a pretty full strawberry tree. And then the other one at like 14 or 16 feet. You think that's too high?
What page is the landscape plan on?
I can pull it
LS
up for us.
101. 1.01.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we could do a dwarf strawberry tree as well.
And
Which-
just to clarify, there's 2 strawberry trees, one located towards the front of the property and one located in between the 2 structures. You're referring to the front
We're just
property.
talking about these front two, the LS1, LS2 that are side by side
Perfect. Just wanted to confirm.
up by the driveway. Okay.
I'm looking at a picture. I'm happy to share it with you, but the window that needs protection on the side there, if this is the window you're talking about, it's the front window.
Is their building right in this area, plantage?
What about that's not a window, so it's this window.
Right. So I don't know how far back to there, because I can't really tell.
That's not facing the property.
No, but if these bushes come out towards the.
Do you want me to send this photo to you guys?
This is going to be to property line.
You want to throw it to Garrett? We just want to establish those two things and then I think,
I'm not sure that there's a height needed for that. Here, let me send this.
In here, winter plants, which means when you shoot up.
So it shows the olive tree can grow between 20 to 30 feet. Would you guys be willing to remove that, or is there a dwarf option? Where's our arborist?
all of
Jim,
these
can
can
I
be.
send the photo to you? I'm not sure I agree that it needs any height limitation, but I could be wrong.
A tree that can grow 20 to 30 feet doesn't need a,
That's still massive. That still makes that area feel massive. I just want to make sure I'm clear. When you come in the driveway, if I recall, that's existing now, and you're going to just go back. So that area you're planting to the right of it is going to be adjacent to the front yard of the neighbors. It's not behind their house line. It's adjacent. So if they're standing at their front window looking towards the ocean, those trees are going to be in their view. And presently, it appears that the hedge height that is separating the driveway from the house, the neighboring house, is approximately 6 or 7 feet. And that gives them a completely clear view. So I think you can go a little higher than that, but I don't think you can bush out 8 feet and up 15. I just think it's going to be a neighboring
go.
problem.
If you could put this on the screen, because to me, that window is, I sent it to you, Jim. Oh, I should send it
just
to
didn't
Garrett?
Listen to what I said.
I know, I was trying to get it, so because we really need to make this part of the record.
So if we move the front tree to a dwarf strawberry tree and cap it at 6 feet or 8 feet, does that get the front tree done?
Should do it. I'd rather you really, I mean, in the end, none of this always happens exactly how it is on here. So I really.
Oh, turn your mic on.
I said none of this always exactly hits like
Yes,
this,
sir.
but I really encourage you to consider that aspect, which perhaps when you did this, it just didn't come into your head. I don't think it's going to make or break your overall look, but you do want some softening with landscaping there. So just stagger it so that we don't have code enforcement and issues. So I think if you start with heavier towards the house, of course, you're safer to go higher. So those can be maybe 8 to 10 feet and then stagger down to 6 feet as you get into the view of the
Hey,
house.
can I ask you a question? Is the tree being planted right
Yes,
by the mailbox?
Right in here. Mhm,
But this
whole
is
area.
facing
Yeah,
out
but
toward the
you're-
street.
Yeah, your tangent. He said right now, there's all this section here.
You got to speak into the microphone.
All this section there is in front of the house, in front of this house.
Board
I
Member
love that
Covey,
You just don't have the angle right.
If we were to move that, the two trees were to swap, so the olive moves closer to the house and the strawberry goes to the front, and condition that the strawberry be a dwarf tree that's maintained at 6 to 8 feet,
Yes.
and that the olive tree be maintained between at 8 to 10 feet or 8 feet? 8 feet? Is that what?
I think it could go 8 to 10 because I do think it's going to be behind. But again, the width's another thing though.
8 to
So,
10.
and that
Canopy
width,
is, yeah.
Would the applicants be amenable to those changes? Okay. You good with that?
If your arborist advises against it, you can always reapply for a change in landscape, modification to landscape.
Okay, on that, I'll make a motion if that's all right.
Please.
Okay. On item number 5.6 at 232 La Brea Street, I will move that the board adopts resolution 24-0484 and attachment 1, approving design review 24-0484 and coastal development permit 24-1086 for a new single-family structure unit B in the addition to the existing single-family structure unit A with additions exceeding 15 feet in height, grading, elevated decks, landscaping, and maintenance of non-conforming conditions for the existing unit, and finding said action exempt from California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to state CEQA guidelines, section 15303, with the condition that on the landscape plan that the strawberry tree and the strawberry tree located near the driveway and the olive tree be swapped in location, and that the strawberry tree be replaced to a dwarf strawberry tree and maintained at no higher than 8 feet, and that the olive tree be conditioned to be maintained between 8 and 10 feet of height from grade.
I second.
Board Member Coveney,
yes.
Board Member Gibbs.
Yes.
Board Member Weil,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Thalman,
Yes.
Chair Gannon,
Yes.
motion carried.
Well done. Way to hang in there. You guys have endurance.
Thank you for your patience and thank you for making the change, the right changes.
And good luck living with two mothers. Introduce them to Rummikub. Yeah. And a game called Sequence.
I feel like
Yeah,
board member
absolutely.
or Chair Gannon will come teach you if you don't know how.
I
you,
love playing
guys.
with my grandparents. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Bye. Is there any other business?
Chair Gannon, no, there's no additional business tonight.
Okay, so we can adjourn.
You certainly can.
We are adjourned to March 27th, 2025. Ms. Thalman's final meeting.